What does it mean for your constituents?
Well, it's fastly becoming the biggest single issue in my mailbag by far. I go out knocking on doors every single week, and this is a main issue people are now speaking to me about. Of course, it's not just the price of fuel at the pumps, it's the price of essential goods in the supermarket, and that's without talking about the wider energy price rises or indeed council tax and national insurance from April onwards. So my constituency is one of the poorest in England, and we are on the bricks of a cost of living crisis here. The government are putting support in. It's only a few weeks ago we saw the £9 billion package from the government, which is effectively worth £300 for every single household in the country. But I think that needs to be seen as a start of government assistance in terms of the cost of living rather than the end of the process. So myself and a number of colleagues really are knocking on every single door in Westminster to make sure the government are aware of how serious this issue is in constituencies such as mine in the Red Wall.
Well, Scott, hold on. We're just going to bring in a GB News viewer. We often have GB Newers here on the show who've emailed me at beatthesqueeze@gbnews.uk. Welcome to Barry Powell, who's joining us from the Midlands. Barry's in his early 50s, and you're concerned, Barry, aren't you, about the costs of motoring, about the costs of buying a hybrid electric vehicle, in general about the costs of making ends meet as prices go up?
To a degree I am, like every viewer is who's watching GB News. But I don't think the problem is just as straightforward as just putting money into people's pockets to cover up the issues that we really face. Because to me, we've got a dual split issue here of firstly gas and then electricity. Electricity, we've got, whichever way you want to put it, we have a growing population in the UK and we have an ageing infrastructure which doesn't seem to be able to support it. We've also got issues with gas where we're in quite a rush to go for net carbon zero as quick as possible. And because we've started to decrease our reliance on North Sea gas, we're at the beck and call of importing from Europe, which is really, it's hurting everybody's pockets. So we need to really put investment into the infrastructure, not just sort of a short sticking plaster on people's pockets. Because to me, I can pay the bills, but there are a lot of people out there who are really, really struggling.
Just before we bring in Victoria Scholar, let's go back to Scott Benton there. Scott, your government has championed the whole idea of net zero. We had the COP26 summit and all the rest of it. Boris Johnson banging the drum. I think almost all the country, they want less pollution. They want a better world for their kids and their grandkids. But is it really right, as Barry says, that a lot of ordinary households, they're paying for this net zero transition with their energy bills? 25% of your electricity bill goes to subsidies for renewable energy companies. Is that really the right thing to be doing as those energy bills are spiralling?
I think Barry makes some excellent points. Of course, I've been on your show previously, Liam, to talk about those 25% added on every single household's energy bill through the so-called green levies and VAT as well. I am a net zero sceptic. Of course, we're all in favour of reducing carbon emissions over time, but we can't balance the costs of that on working families up and down this country. The sheer fact is, for decades and decades, governments, both Conservative and Labour, have failed on their energy policies. We should have pursued nuclear far earlier. We've become reliant on foreign energy sources, and I'm afraid with the situation in Ukraine and Russia at the moment, it's clear that was a huge strategic error. So I think we have to do a number of things. We have to up our game on nuclear. We have to continue North Sea oil exploration for gas as well. And also the question on fracking potentially needs to be reopened and re-examined. We had a look at trying to take advantage of fracking opportunities on the Foul Coast near my constituency. For whatever reason, that didn't work out, and the OGA, the Oil and Gas Authority, concluded the risks were too high, and now those wells are in the process of being capped. However, there are other locations potentially in the UK which could be safe for fracking, and I think we do have to explore those as a matter of urgency.
Victoria, in the studio, we're seeing here before us, we're hearing the political debate panning out. We've got Barry Powell, GB News viewer, very informed bloke. We've got Scott Benton, one of the most prominent young Conservative MPs, proud Red Wall representative. We are going to see some changes here in government energy policy, aren't we? And if we do, financial markets are going to react.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've already seen the huge rally in financial markets in terms of oil prices, natural gas up by about 10% today. So governments will clearly be keeping a watchful eye and thinking about the cost of living crisis. And as has been mentioned by other guests here, the impact on low-income households. So it really does feel like this is going to be a huge focus for government. You know, we're coming out of an unprecedented public health crisis that left the economy on its knees, and that required massive amounts of stimulus, both in terms of fiscal stimulus with the furlough scheme, stamp duty holiday, other measures, and then on the monetary side, we had rock-bottom interest rates. Unfortunately, the side effect of that has been a wildly inflationary environment with demand vastly outstripping supply. So that needs to come back under check. And as we were talking about earlier, you know, the CPI measure coming in at 5.5%, but doesn't
that consumer price index, yeah.
Consumer price index doesn't necessarily reflect people's reality.